Hey everybody, welcome to Skipping Lunch, Episode 3. I'm Wes Allen, I am the host and creator of DM Tales, and this is my live stream that I do weekly where I talk about things going on in the TTRPG world, show off some cool stuff that I've got, and maybe tell a story or two about my campaigns that I have ongoing. And that just wanted to turn off on me. Yay, let's see if you're going to work. That's not good. Turn on. Mayor, hold on a second. Technical difficulties. Okay. Anyway, it's having problems getting connected to the Wi-Fi, but it's still connected hardwire, so it works. I don't know. Technology is haunted sometimes, and I need to get more wires up here because that's what everybody needs is more wires. Anyway, I want to talk about some cool things that are going on in the wider TTRPG world. There is a lot of news that's come out this week. The first of which is something that has been greatly anticipated since January, because Kobold Press has officially launched their Kickstarter for Tales of the Valiant. It launched yesterday. I'm going to bring that up on the screen right now. I don't have a microphone on that, so let me go change. I'm going to change that and bring a microphone on. Technical difficulties are always fun. Give me 1 second here. There we go. Now I'm here. So anyway, Tales of the Valiant has already cleared $623,000, almost $624,000. They had to come up with new stretch goals in their first day of funding, which is pretty impressive. For folks who don't know, Tales of the Valiant is essentially Kobold Press's continuation of the FiveE line that probably has been in planning for some time, but it got accelerated and announced in January after the whole OGL debacle when Wizards of the Coast decided it wanted to lose its mind. And so what has happened is they've now released it. It's going to come out as a 2-box set. I think it is Monsters and the Treasures and a Player's Handbook, all the core rulebook. And it's essentially their take on FiveE. So they tweak some stuff. They're changing a couple of details about how the game is implemented, but it will be compatible with all the FiveE stuff that they've come out with before. If you are a FiveE player and you like things like, if you like FiveE and you've liked Kobold Press's monster books and things that they put out, this is probably a good way for you to continue to play FiveE without giving Wizards of the Coast a red cent for their products and for 1D&D moving forward, which we all know is actually 6th edition, no matter what they say. I have looked at some of the playtest materials. I'm a little torn in backing this myself. Obviously, they don't need my backing. They've raised over $500 million at this point. But I'm a little torn about this because FiveE's not it's not my favorite game to play, and it's certainly my least favorite game that I own to run. And it's not to say anything bad about FiveE as a game. I know a lot of people are like, ooh, that's baby D&D, and that's just dumb. I can't get my mindset into the game enough where I feel like I've done a good job as a DM. That's really where my struggle is with FiveE. So I will probably back this because a lot of people love FiveE. That's the version of the game that they like to play. And I want people to be able to onboard folks into the hobby using a system that they love without giving Wizards of the Coast more money, because that's what Wizards of the Coast wants. They want more of all the money. We'll talk about that in just a little bit. So that's what's going on. And excuse me as we go in, because I'm going to also look at this wonderful video, or this little screen here. And I set all these scenes up last night, and I forgot to put audio see audio captures on most of my screen shares. So this is now fixed. Anyway, this is a thing that I saw yesterday on Mastodon. This is Laid Back DM, and he's got a magazine called FiveE Magazine. I had not seen this before, but it came across as a free download through TTRPG. It's a free or a pay what you want download. And I was like, well, let me take a look at that and see what it looks like. And look at what they put out for pay as you want or free. This is absolutely beautiful. This goes back to, you know, the 80s and the 90s, where fan magazines or official magazines were like a big deal, and they've made this beautiful. And it's not just the cover, it goes all the way out through the layout, and there are tips on creating villains, there's adventures to go through, there are maps to look at, and some other hints to go in. It's really, really cool. A lot of material for, again, FiveE, which is strange for me because I'm starting with a lot of FiveE stuff today, and I basically have never reviewed anything FiveE on this except for the original Adventures Reincarnated books. But that's what I'm doing today. Yes, your favorite was Aideen. Yeah, King Eric, I know. Hey, Epic Solo, how are you? Thanks for everybody being there. But look at the interior of this magazine. That is, again, for free by Laid Back DM. Let me get up to where my keystroke actually works on it. There we go. Just look at it. I'm not even going to go through the details, but look how beautiful this is. The artwork and the layout. It's really, really cool. I do have some nitpicks. I hate this font just because I don't find it readable. But look how gorgeous this is. Just really, really cool stuff. And look how many pages it is. It just keeps going and going. It's 58 pages of material, 60 pages of material, 62 pages. 65, actually 65, I'm looking at the wrong thing. Look how much material is in that book, and they're offering it for free or pay as you want. And I downloaded it for free because I was just going to check it out, and now I feel guilty about it because a lot of work has gone into this magazine. It's really, really well done. And I'm going to be reading it, and let me scratch my nose. I'm going to be reading it. I'm going to go back and probably download the first two. Even though FiveE is not my favorite version of the game, there's so much in here that there might be stuff I can lift and pull for the games that I do enjoy running, and that should be a lot of fun. So if you want to go and download that for free or pay as you want, I do have the link in the description. I put all the links for the stuff I was covering in the description beforehand this week, so that's kind of nice. I'm beginning to work ahead and thinking that I need stuff like show notes. So that's really cool. This other thing, again, please excuse the drop of audio for a second. I need to just put on studio mode so I can change things as I'm going through, but I don't want to explode stuff. It's working right now. But this is Neurocity. Now, Neurocity is important to me because the developer, Gabriel Cuega, I always forget how to pronounce his last name. He's one of the first people that asked me to review a game and sent me a copy of his game Warpland, which if you look back in my channel history, you can find the link for that review. He's from South America. A lot of his games have a lot of really, really, really dark themes. And as a bonus to sending me Warpland, he sent me the original copy of this game called Neurocity, which was his first game, which he said it really wasn't very good and it needed an update. And well, this is the update now. This is Neurocity Colorblind Edition. It is a dystopian, high-tech kind of, almost like a paranoia type setting in the brief reading that I did from it. He does all rules-like game with these really dark, not gruesome, but mature themes. There's he does a good balance for that. The Kickstarter for it has closed. I missed it getting into it my show last week where it was still open, but he is doing pre-orders. He's just not doing late pledges. It's too difficult for him where he is based and then trying to go through. But if you go to the Kickstarter page, the link is in the description again, and you message him, he'll tell you how you can pre-order a copy, and it should be coming out verily. It should be come out soonish is where I should say. I know words. That's really good. That's it. Yeah, King Eric, the FiveE magazine does remind me of Dragon magazine. That's why I was like, "Whoa, this is neat." But that's really, really kind of a nice thing. I wanted to give a nod out to Gavriel. He was really good to me in sending me a copy of his product and trusted me to do a review when nobody had a clue who I was. He just seen some of the comments that I was making in a forum and thought, I would be good for this, and let me review his book. So with that Kickstarter coming through, it was successfully funded. I did want to put that out there and make more folks aware of his cool games. Again, he does these dark, serious role-playing games, a little more darker than I am comfortable playing, but they are really cool settings. They're worth taking a look at. Then let's take a look at the last bit of news that is going around the web that I'm looking at today. It's not all the news, but it's what I'm looking at. Tonight, again, adding my input, my audio input, but tonight, Critical Role is starting their first ongoing series. It will happen on their off weeks, which is the last Friday of the month, where they're going to be using their own role-playing game. It is Illuminated Worlds. So if you were paying attention a couple weeks ago, Critical Role announced that they were coming out with 2 RPG systems. The first was Illuminated Worlds, which is a D6 dice pool system that is designed for kind of shorter arc campaigns. It's not for really long, expansive campaigns. So that's kind of what they're using to demonstrate in this new Candela Obscura series, which has a strong Call of Cthulhu vibe if you look at the artwork for it and have seen some of the previews. But they're starting that tonight. It will run on that last Friday of the month, and I think they said it's going to be 4 or 5 sessions for that first one, and then they'll keep going. This is an important thing because their other role-playing game that they're coming out with is named Daggerheart, which they have described as a game that is designed for long-form campaigns of epic fantasy, which sounds vaguely familiar. And the speculation, the assumption really at this point is that Critical Role is preparing to dump FiveE in order to run their own systems for their signature campaigns. It might not happen anytime soon because they're still in the middle of campaign 3 and maybe they don't want to switch systems in the middle of a campaign on camera. That might be a little bit of a pain in the neck for folks. But if they do that, I can't imagine that Wizards of the Coast is very happy about this development. That Critical Role is taking their 1 million+ subscribers and their huge fan base and saying, hey, we're doing our own stuff. Why don't you try it out? Oh, here's our publishing house, Darrington Press. You can order books through that. And WOTC's looking at the slice of the pie is getting a little bit slimmer. And that should be coming out about the same time, if the timelines all are working out, about the same time as Tales of the Valiant next spring, which is also when we should start seeing the drops of 1D&D or D&D 5.5, or really it's 6th edition. Who are they trying to kid? I know they get angry about that, but it's just so silly. It's 6th edition, just say it. But they're all going to drop at the same time. So it's going to be neat to see if Wizards' huge bully in the room mentality is able to win out over these other upstarts because they've got their own weight behind them as well. And also, Wizards of the Coast just can't seem to get out of their own way and show themselves as being awful. And that it seems to be getting worse as time goes on. Even when they try to do something nice, it looks awful. It's really bizarre. If you know anything about their influencer conference that they had a few weeks ago, it did not turn out the way that they had hoped. So it's going to be a fun thing for me as a commentator, even as someone who's not involved in FiveE playing it directly. I'm going to enjoy just watching to see what happens and seeing if these upstarts can really carve off a slice for themselves inside the TTRPG space. I think that's going to be a lot of fun. And look, Wes, do you have a favorite edition of D&D? That's from King Eric the Greatest. I can't put your comments on screen today. I don't have a plugin for that for OBS because I was doing it last night and I didn't have a chance. So Eric, you asked me 2 questions on chat. One is, did I see the D&D cartoon that Critical Role did? Yes. I thought it was really, really good, especially because I had watched that part of campaign one. I've never finished an entire campaign of Critical Role, but I saw those arcs of storyline, and I thought they did a pretty good job. I thought Scanlan was a little bit overdone in the cartoon. Like some of that stuff that they were showing in the cartoon were stuff that like maybe they as much as that show does fades to black on him. So I thought maybe he was a little bit much in season one. They kind of found their balance really good in season two for Critical Role. I enjoyed it. I thought it was a lot of fun. And do I have a favorite edition of D&D? Probably Moldvay Cook Basic Expert. And this is because even I don't like Race's class. I just always thought that was dumb because you're playing a fighter with a little bit of extra abilities. Yay. But the rule set is where I started. And mentally, I still go there. Even with my break of a couple of decades away from the hobby, I still knew 13 to 15 was +1, and 16 to 17 was +2, and 18 was +3. I knew that. That was like ingrained in my brain. And even when I got all the AD&D books and I was making up characters, I would look at the scores and all the things would say what your bonuses were, and I would just use Moldvay Cooks anyway, because that's just the way that I was mentally seeing things. So that's one thing that I appreciate about Old School Essentials Advanced Edition is that they've managed to take in that AD&D feel while keeping the Moldvay Cook play balance and power levels. And they did it seamlessly. So you can play classic fantasy and advanced fantasy together at the same table and nothing breaks. In my reviews, that blew my mind that they could even do that. But they did it really well. And it's also one of the reasons why I appreciate Basic Fantasy RPG, because it does very much the same thing while keeping it more simple, like Moldvay Cook Basic Experts. That's it. So Epic Solo is very happy that I like that. Yeah, and that is why I like Advanced Fantasy. It's really, really good. You're not a fan of Hasbro Wizards. You wish TSR had never sold their IP. Well, Eric, I think at that point you really have to wish that TSR had never needed to, because they didn't have any money. You know, the folks who were still working at TSR at the end didn't know if they were going to show up one day and have everything locked or if their paychecks were going to bounce. So selling to Wizards of the Coast was kind of an important step that saved D&D as a brand. And it's just one of those things. And it was before folks were throwing out everything into Creative Commons, so that was not a thing yet. Open source was not a big deal when they did that sale. And Michael, thank you so much for saying that you found my channel through my Basic Fantasy videos. I hope to go back and do. I have a lot of modules, adventures. I still call them modules that I need to review. And 4E is coming out. I can't wait to take a look at all the new books that are coming out, hopefully next month. So that is what we're looking at. Now, I do want to point out, again, a lot of FiveE news, even though I don't play FiveE, but this is what's popping up today or this week. WOTC has announced a price increase. They are increasing their prices by 20%. New books, which are going to start with Bigby Presents Glory to the Giants, which comes out in October, are going to be priced at $59.95. So there are a couple things with this. First, they haven't raised the prices of the books since FiveE was originally released in 2014. So, I mean, yeah, they're raising the prices, but the books are arguably cheaper now than what they were back in 2014, and this is a little bit of a correction at that point. But at the same time, they're making gobs and gobs and gobs and gobs and gobs of money because Wizards of the Coast is essentially Hasbro's entire profit through the entire corporate structure. And this seems to be more of the accountants looking at the books and going, oh, well, we want all the money, and because we haven't raised prices in all these years, we're now making less of all the money, so we need to raise the prices so we can make more of all the money again. That seems to be the mentality behind it. And they did hold off. It was, 9 years to raise the prices. We'll see what the 1 D&D books are going to cost, and if they're going to include digital downloads with it, like every other publishing company does pretty much at this point. And that's going to be interesting to watch as things move forward. There's a lot of folks who are really upset about this. I did have one friend of mine point out that there are some people going, well, this might actually help smaller publishers. And the reason why is this: $50 or $49.95 has been set as the standard price for a TTRPG premium book. That's what you pay to get a core rule book, because that's what Wizards of the Coast did. And if you charge that amount, you are paying standard. And if you're charging the standard rate, and if you charge less, well, then that's great, because you're under standard. Hey, look, you're a bargain. And anything that is over that is considered to be overpriced. This has never really come up in my conversations with developers. They never have conveyed to me that they felt constricted because WOTC has set this price and they can't go beyond it, and it's hurting their income from their products. That might be something that I need to ask moving forward, because Wizards is the 110-pound gorilla in the room, or 1-ton gorilla, or whatever the phrase is. They're the big dog in the room, the giant elephant in the room, right? There's a lot of metaphors in one incoherent sentence. Yay. But I need to ask them, has Wizards setting this price restricted you at all? And the reason why I think it is a legitimate question to ask is because Monty Cook has always charged more than $50 for their books. And I have conveyed to people how much their games cost, the Cipher System books and the core Numenera books, and how much the 2-box set is. It's like $120. And people have reacted that is overpriced because it's more than $50. It doesn't matter that the books are huge, that they're really, really thick, that there's an immense amount of value into it. The artwork is incredible, and that there's hours and hours and hours of entertainment in it for something that is still cheaper than a video game. Because Wizards of the Coast has set that $50 price limit, they're overpriced. And I wonder if, because now they're charging $60 a book too, if now Monty Cook is suddenly going to be considered, okay, well, they're just standard now. Like, does Wizards still have that amount of leverage in the space that whatever price they set is the standard? I'm doing a lot of scare quotes today. That's going to be interesting to watch, and we'll find out starting in October. Should be good. I'm looking at the comments here. Juju, Eric, the thing that bugs me about FiveE is actually it's pretty hard for characters to die. Yeah, here's the thing about FiveE, and it's hard for characters to die. I don't think that it necessarily is. And everybody's like, oh, hold on, nobody ever dies. Here's the reason why. It's because it's so hard to create a challenging encounter. And it's not because the monsters are nerfed or anything, because you have things like legendary actions, and you can put things in your FiveE monsters that you want. It's because the way that the game is designed, you're supposed to have so many encounters between rests to whittle players down, so that by the third encounter, that deadly encounter is really a deadly encounter, because the rating for deadly and easy and moderate are all based on if you have the appropriate amount of encounters per day. So if you did a campaign that had the appropriate amount by design per day, those deadly encounters would be deadly, because players wouldn't have the ability to be popping up all the time, because their abilities would be drained and they'd be down on hit points too. They wouldn't want to put themselves at risk. The problem is this: FiveE combat, I know people disagree with me, but FiveE combat takes for freaking ever, because everybody's got bonus actions, and everybody's got actions, and then everybody has action surges, and then everybody has all these things that they can do, and I'm going to move, and I'm going to do this, and I'm going to teleport, I'm going to go over here. People can do so many things in a turn, which is great. Players love it, and it's a lot of fun. But an individual turn, which in game is like 6 seconds, can take like 5-10 minutes if the person is having to flip through and look through their spells. And 5 minutes is probably 10 minutes is way out, but it's about 5 minutes sometimes that I've seen. And yet DMs have gone, well, just put a timer on and make them go for a minute. Like, okay, that's fine, but to me, there's still something broken about that. And because D&D combat takes so long, no one puts that many combat encounters in a session that would make the difficulty levels actually make sense. That's my struggle with FiveE. My brain can't figure that out. Because again, I've said this a lot of times, I am not trying to kill the party. I am rooting for the party, even as I'm playing all the NPCs. I want them to have epic and amazing moments that really echo and song and bards in whatever world they're playing in for ages coming. But I do want to challenge the party, and I've never cracked the code of being able to challenge. There are people who have, and they love running FiveE, and I'm grateful for them because they bring people into this really cool hobby. But I've never figured it out, which is why I like running some other systems where it's a little easier to be challenging for the party without feeling like I needed to go out of my way to try to kill them. And so that's my struggle with FiveE. So characters can die if you're playing the game the way it's designed. The problem is no one plays the game that is designed because you don't have 12 hours to do 6 encounters during a day or whatever the number is right there. So that's the kind of idea. Anyway, let me look into a couple of things because I have a couple things I do want to take a look at today. First was in my thumbnail, that is Index Card RPG. But before we get there, let's take a look at this. When I got a box of goodies from one of my viewers, like back in, last October, one of the books in it was the Swords and Wizardry Complete with the Errol Otis cover that I did a short live stream on it a few weeks ago. And I didn't think much of it at the time because I've never played OD&D. I started with Multi-Cook Basic Expert, and I just didn't have nostalgia for it. So I didn't know if I'd take to the game or not. And some of the other things that I've looked at for OD&D, they haven't captured my attention. Maybe I just wasn't ready to read those yet. I opened up that Swords of Wizardry book and was like, whoa, this is cool. Because it's so free, it is so open. There's a ton of character classes that you can play. Really easy, simple layout. There were good differentiations between optional rules and different ways to do things like initiative or armor class, and they explained all the different rules that way. And it was really well written and well thought out. And I thought, this is a really neat game. I wanted to put it in my review queue, but it was out of print at that point. I didn't want to review things that people couldn't get their hands on. I didn't think that was fair to folks. This is the new edition of Swords and Wizardry that is now post-OGL. This is running their own license, by David Finch, or Matt Finch. I always say David for some reason, but by Matt Finch, who's a neat guy. If you ever see an interview of him anywhere on the web, watch it, because he's really, really good. And their Kickstarter ran. They did really well in the Kickstarter. The print books hopefully will be being printed soon, but they sent out their backer kit survey, and lo and behold, the PDF download of the new edition was there, and this is it. And it feels like an updated version of the old Errol Otis cover softbound that I got in that box so many months ago. Really well done. It's very clean. Here's their character sheet at the beginning of the book, which I thought was an interesting touch. I love how they have the section for the title over on the side there. It's very clean. And I love, if you know anything about my reviews, I love clean design. The tables are pretty clean. I think a couple of them I would like to see centered, but that's just me. I love the lines of the dividers. The artwork that they put in for the new character classes is so good. This is a lot of movement. I like the hatching for showing shadow is really neat. But it's just a nice looking book. I have read through probably about a quarter of this at this point, but it's very pretty. It's not beautiful, and I want to be clear about that. It's not beautiful in that they didn't go, we want to make the most stunning, beautiful, glorious book that has ever existed. I don't know why I'm talking in that voice. That's the Coriolis rule book, which I think I've said in one of these streams before. The rule book for Coriolis, the Third Horizon, is gorgeous. It is a piece of art in and of itself, even without the text. And my problem is it doesn't function as a book because it's so beautiful. The beauty of it gets in the way. What Matt Finch did with, I think, the earlier editions of Swords of Wizardry and this one is he decided he was going to create a good-looking, a clean book that served well as a book that was also pleasant to look at. And so for him, the communication of information was at the forefront. Everything had to be that clean way of doing it. And I appreciate that a whole lot. And I think they nailed it in a lot of ways. This is a throwback design in a lot of ways. It looks like you can, Matt, you can, or Epic Solo, you can actually pick up Swords and Wizardry as a pre-order now. So go ahead and go do it if you want. But this is a throwback design. Sometimes I've never liked where pages are 2 columns on one side and 3 on the others. It's just never something that I've liked. So I'm nitpicking at this point. But it's throwback. This feels very much back in the era of Moldy Cook, that era of D&D. But it's updated. The fonts are a little bit cleaner. They're nicer to look at. It's very nice. And that is Swords and Wizardry, which I am impressed with. And again, as I just told Epic Solo, the pre-order store, I believe, if I'm correct, the pre-order store is open right now. And also there are rules again for descending and ascending armor class. You can see the brackets right there. And they do teach you how to generate your bonus to hit depending on your character class. I think there's a table for it. Oh yeah, here it is. This is the table for your bonus to hit depending on character class. That's really nice. Really cool. I'm very happy that showed up. I was not expecting it. I was expecting it maybe in July. But it's like, hey, backer kit survey and your digital downloads are here. I was like, whoa, that's so cool. Now let's take a look at the star of the show, which is there was no audio on this one either. I am so sorry, folks. Index Card RPG, folks when I started doing Easy D6 reviews, people wanted to know if I'd ever do an Index Card RPG review. You can see my hand there. My Index Card RPG review, so I could compare the two and see which one I liked better. I always wanted to. I've always planned to. I didn't have the money at the time, and then when I had the money, Index Card RPG was currently in between printings. I think they were like moved warehouses at some point, so they were holding off doing a printing. It came out. I came across a little bit of cash, and I decided to order it, and it showed up earlier this week. I have looked at, I think, 15 or between 15 and 18 pages at this point, so I have not gotten deep into the book. I'm still even looking at, yeah, I did enter the Code of Silence. I'm still looking at the mechanics and kind of learning them, but just opening up, there's a lot that I love about this book. One ding that I have, and you're not seeing it on camera right now, but I am because of the angle that I'm at, it's glossy paper. Okay, please, all printers, all publishers, I understand the glossy looks good for the artwork. I understand that the glossy feels premium because that's what our culture associates with premium print right now. Premium is awful for reading, especially when you're a little bit older, you're wearing glasses and glare just gets in the way. And I do have a printer who's a member of my church. I'm not sure if they do books or not, but I asked him about why people use glossy paper before, and he just looked at me like, I have no idea. We tell them not to. If they're not printing a magazine, don't do it. There's no reason. Stop using glossy paper. And nobody listens because we want the premium feel. This has that premium feel to it. Also, if you really want to be true, the glossy paper's got the plastic coating on it, and it's probably worse for the environment. So just use flat paper. Easier to read, and there's no glare. But that's my this is my only knock on the book at this point. And it's not just Index Card RPG. It's so many RPG books. When I get a flat page book, I'm like, yes, thank you. It's a great, wonderful treat. But let's take a look again. So let's look at this Index Card RPG. First off, I love the cover art. It's really neat. And look at the artwork. It's really, really heavy. And that is all the way through the book, that the artwork is really heavy. You find out why in this opening little letter called A Glorious Mess. And the reason why the artwork has got this heavy, just stark contrast black and white is because Index Card RPG started out with a series of silly Sharpie drawings. And they kept that design language and managed to make it beautiful throughout the entire book. That is so cool. I love that they managed to do that. It's really neat. I like how they have call-outs that give you a little bit of extra hint in there, and you can see there's a Sharpie doodle down at the bottom. It's really kind of cool. good, there's the glare coming out, but good bullet point list for points. Really, really cool hints, as I said, and call outs. I love the stark contrast of red for headers or headings is really, really cool. And just everything about this book so far I've really, really liked. I am still getting used to the mechanic. So it is a D20 mechanic. You add your stat to your roll in order to make a check. And there's 3 types of checks in the game. So let's take a look at the page here. So you have a check and an attempt. So an attempt, let me go to checks and attempts. One of these is automatic, so that's the idea. So you don't have a roll for that. A check is just a straight check. It's for, if I remember my reading really quick, and again, I'm only a couple pages in, but a check is for an instantaneous action. Like it's something that you're reacting to or you're trying to do, like jump, and you need to get to the other side of the chasm. Well, you're not going to continue jumping. This isn't Super Mario Brothers. You're not doing a double jump across the chasm. You're just jumping. And so that's a check to see if you make it. An attempt is something that institutes or describes an ongoing action. So if you are attacking a creature, we always say, well, yeah, you swing your sword and you hit. That's kind of like the dull way of describing combat. So in index card RPG, you have an attempt, which means you swing to hit, which is fine. So you connect, but now you have to roll effort. And your effort die depends on what type of tool you are using for the attempt. A lot of times it is combat, so it's a weapon type. The more powerful weapon, the higher die that you roll. It's kind of neat. And so when you hit, then you have to roll your attempt to describe your ongoing action and attempt to achieve what your goal is. So it's not just swinging your sword and you get hit. Like Ultima, like old Ultima games or turn-based role-playing games is where, here's your turn, swipe. Okay, they did that much of damage. This is meant to give you that sense that there's really ongoing fluid motion action. So it's not just that I'm taking one shot at the robot to try to drop their shields. No. I'm sending several shots to move them in a place where I'm going to be able to hit their vulnerable spot, and that's what I'm doing. Or I am engaging in sword play with this character. I'm beating off their shield. I'm parrying their counter thrust. And then finally I get the opening and I slice. That's what effort is meant to describe. So it's encouraging a descriptive element to an action that is ongoing throughout their turn. So I kind of like that idea. And it's really neat. So let's go back to the overhead here. So you do have, I'm trying to see here. So the other cool thing is that every scene or every target in a scene has the same target number. So you don't have one character or one NPC with one armor class. You don't have another NPC with another armor class. You just have everything in the scene has this target number, and that's what you're going to attempt to beat. If you want a hard attempt that you're going to try, like this is not a normal action that you're trying, so I'm going to make this hard, or an easy one. Yeah, this is pretty simple. I'm going to make it a little easier for you to hit that on your roll. You add +3 or -3. Now, if I'm remembering how folks described the math of advantage, disadvantage before, +3 or -3 is essentially the mathematical equivalent of advantage or disadvantage. At least that's what I'm remembering correctly. So they just do it with a straight modifier to your roll. This is a hard task, it's +3 for your target number. This is an easy task, it's -3 for your target number. It's a nice way. Gutenberg used glossy paper. I hate glossy paper. Gutenberg? No, they didn't use glossy, did they? Anyway, I'm looking at comments. Someone said Gutenberg used glossy paper, which is nice. And so then, like, here's your different effort die, depending on your tool that you are using. Most normal tools are going to be a D6. Higher power weapons and tools and magic and stuff are going to be higher. I always love a D12 getting its love. And then rolling effort is this. You're no hit points for NPCs in this game. You have hearts, so it's kind of like Legend of Zelda. And instead of keeping track of hit points, you keep track of hearts. Every 10 points of effort that is done to an NPC that removes 1 heart from their total, and then they lose all their hearts, they die. Really a neat idea. There's something very clean about how they do it. I'm really impressed with it. And so far, again, this is the limit. There's 2 book ribbons. Let me go back here. There's 2 book ribbons, a black and a red. I love the black and red theme. I'm on page 16 at this point, so that's how far I've gotten into the book. But I just wanted to look at the layout and the design and explain just the little bit that I've learned of the game so far. And again, I love the Sharpie images. It's so cool. And one of the nice things about this Master Edition, let me get to the table of contents here. Go through, great, is they have monsters, but then they have a whole bunch of worlds that you can go into to show you how index card RPG can be used in any genre. So yet again, I am looking at a genreless game. Really cool. Index card RPG, I am already fond of it. I see myself becoming a fan of it. It will be interesting the next time that I want to run a one-shot if I try to use index card RPG or stick with EZD6. They are both a lot of fun. This seems to be a little bit, well, not a little bit, a lot more math heavy than EZD6 because EZD6 is essentially no math, but still really light, easy, and fast to play. So I'm impressed. Really nice. And thank you everyone who's in chat or on my channel is watching this later for suggesting index card RPG. I am really grateful that I have this in my library. So thank you very much. Now, let me talk a little bit of stories. I should have title sequences for all these, but let me tell you about a couple of stories in my games. Because I did, since my last skipping lunch, I did have my one-shot day. It was a lot of fun. We ended up with 24 players at 4 different tables. I think next time I have to move the tables into different rooms because I could not hear anybody. It was like great energy. I felt like I was at a con. But I had a bunch of new players around the table for my EZD6 adventure. It was really cool. And one of them had a spell. I forget who the wizard's name is, but it's called Mirror Walk. And they can take a couple of companions with them, or they can go by themselves, and they can teleport between 2 mirrored surfaces or reflective surfaces within a certain range. And I had somebody try to do something cool with it the last one. I think this was the husband of that player this time, so he tried it. But it was really, really cool. So this giant demonic bureaucrat showed up at the end. Don't ask. But it was named Tub, the unnamed beast. And he wanted revenge on the party for foiling their plan to burn down a forest and turn it into a demonic resort town. That was the last one-shot that I ran, the last one-shot day. So he and this fixer from the company that was trying to facilitate the demonic takeover of the forest, they lured the party to this ancient place and were going to ambush them to teach them a lesson, i.e., chop bits off. And so this thing comes into the room through a magic circle. He's between 8 and 10 feet tall. He's got some nasty, nasty abilities. The party is beginning to attack. In EZD6, you have a crit roll. Anytime you are attacking, you roll a 6, you crit. So you do a stroke of damage. So every attack in EZD6 does 1 point of damage or one strike of damage. But then if you crit, you get to roll again. And if you get another 6, you do another point of damage, you get to roll again. And EZD6 has a karma system to where if you fail a roll, you get a karma token that you can later spend on a roll, any roll but a 1, in order to increase the total on the die. So if you have a 5, you spend a token, you get a 6. Well, it's a crit. I get to roll again. Yay! Well, I had one character. It was the first time they ever played, and I think this unnamed beast had like 24 strikes, which is a huge amount of strikes for EZD6. This one character ended up doing like 12 points of damage in one turn because they spent all their karma. They kept on bunching a number of natural 6s. Everybody is screaming. They're cheering so loud. It was really, really cool. But then they go around, and there was another string of crits by another character who's a little bit less, so he's attacking from the other side. They're both basically destroying this creature's knees, and he's going on the ground. So this guy comes up, and he was playing the Scald, which is the bard type. And he's looking at his scrolls and goes, okay, wait, so is the demon wearing glasses? I'm like, Well, he's a bureaucrat, so of course he's used to looking at paperwork all day. Of course he's wearing glasses. And I had already described that the floor of this room was polished marble, really shiny, like you could see your reflection into it. He goes, okay, so here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to use this mirror walk scroll. I'm going to drop down on the floor. I'm going to jump out of his glasses. This is something that his wife had tried playing one of the characters last time. I went, okay, cool, absolutely, you can definitely do that. So in Easy D6, you have to roll for magic. You can do it as a first level, second level, or third level spell, or whatever. I forget what the terminology is. And that roll is what you need to have be over the target's magic resistance. So the demon had a 2d6 magic resistance, and I think I rolled like a 3. So he had to roll a 3 or higher. So he's going to make a decision. I'm going to roll 1, 2, or 3 dice. And you think, well, you just always roll 3. Well, when you're rolling magic in Easy D6, you don't want to do that, because if any of the dice show a 1, well, then that spell just goes, psst, it fizzles, right? So what's he do? It was glossy marble, yes. Not the knees. Eric, I love watching your comments, by the way. So he cast this spell, and he rolls, and he had to beat a 3. He decides he's going to roll 3 dice, and I'm going, please don't roll a 1. Please don't roll a 1. And he ends up rolling a 6. There's no crit in this game, but I gave him a little bit of a bonus. No crit for magic. So he sinks down into the floor and emerges almost instantaneously from this demon's glasses, knocking them askew, right? So I ask him, it's like, okay, well, on your way out the glasses, what are you going to do? I'll let you do like a single kick if you want to do a strike of damage to him as you go. He's like, no. I have perfume as part of my equipment. Okay, I'm spraying it in the demon's eyes. Fine. You're like, absolutely. First off, he'd already rolled a 6, but second off, I am not making him roll for that, because that's just too cool. I want this to happen. As you're coming out, you have the spray bottle ready, and you just into the demon's eyes as you emerge. It's now blinded and has a bane, which is disadvantage for all of its actions in its next turn. Fine. I said, but you're now 10 feet in the air. And you're not the most acrobatic person on the planet. So what we're going to do is you have to roll a check to land without damage. And it's going to be a 5, because it's going to be really hard. It's a 1 to 6, right? Okay, fine. He has 1 die to roll. I think he still has some karma, but he's got 1 die to roll. If he rolls a 1, he falls and he takes a damage. He's going to be prone, and maybe the demon stomps on him, right? He rolls another 6. So I say, okay, here's the deal. You sink down to the floor. You emerge from the glasses. You spray this demon's eyes, who howls in pain and frustration and rage as you backflip over and land on the floor in a 3-point superhero stance. And the whole the whole table went, that was so cool. Like, they were excited. And that was like my epic moment for Easy D6 running it this week. That's one of the reasons why I like Easy D6. It lends itself to, you're in danger. Most of the characters only had 3 strikes, so you are in danger, but man, you can do some cool stuff on the way out. Really, really cool. And that was like absolutely phenomenal. They ended up taking care of business without being hurt too bad. I need to add more minions next time, but oh man, it was a great time. And then also, since my last play, I did have my session of Basic Fantasy RPG, which was only our second session in like a month and a half. Everybody's been busy. So I took them on a little bit of a side quest. I had told you, I think, about the character who decided he was going to go to a CD bar, and just find Agent 1 and Agent 2 because they had product that was not being delivered. And so the 4 players that were able to play last week decided, yeah, we'll go figure out what's going on with the product. They figured out it was coffee beans. How did the character get in the glasses? King Eric, because going back to Easy D6, Eric is asking how they got in the glasses. The way that the mirror walk scroll works is that you can teleport from one reflective surface to another within range. So we determined that the marble was reflective and the glasses were also reflected, so off he went. So that's how he did it. Anyway, so they decided they were going to go and check this out. There was a trade road, like a secret trade road that these 2 dwarves had created through the forest on the outside of the FiveE elves' territory. They knew that their last caravan, because of another route, had gotten about a day's journey out, but they hadn't been heard of since. So like, oh, we'll go check this out, no problem. And I had built a cave system using Dungeon Alchemist's new cave tools, which I'm actually going to look at on my channel pretty soon. And they said, yeah, we'll do this. And so, okay. So I had a creature in there in mind to be the big bad who was behind the theft of the hijacking of the trade. But what's he going to use as guard dogs? And they had encountered before these creatures called giant tiger beetles, which are really hard to hit and really, really, really fast, and they hurt when they bite. And I thought, yeah, 4 of these things would be pretty good. The 4 players, they've encountered them before. They dealt with them no problem. And I had 4 of them come out. I actually reduced it because a bunch of players couldn't play. And they couldn't roll for the life of them. They kept on rolling like missing like a wide margin, and I kept on rolling like automatic hits on all these creatures. And they were in huge amount of trouble. One player had been downed. He fell on the ground, and I got around to initiative to where the fighter who was standing literally right next to him was right next to him. And I said, okay, here's the deal. You have 2 of these giant fire beetles in front of you. One of them is about to eat Nitro. My players have strange names for their characters. One of them's about to eat Nitro. You got to figure it out. But I will say this, is that he died with his rod of magic missiles in his hand, and you know how to activate it. What are you going to do? So I gave him a little bit of a hint. Here's a way that you can come out. Just cast Time Stop. No. No, they were not bifocal stuff. So he goes, well, I'm picking up the rod. All right, fine. So you pick up the rod of magic missiles and you're going to activate it. It's is able to do it as a second tier. So it fires 2 missiles. It's 2d6 plus 2 points of damage in basic fantasy RPG. What are you going to do? His first inclination was to fire at both the creatures in front of him and try to beat them down a little bit. That would have been a mistake because they probably would have devoured him the next turn. And so he said, no, I rethink. Both missiles are the one that just knocked out Nitro and is about to try to beat him. I do play with a negative 10 hit point roll in my game. Otherwise, I would have probably had about 3 or 4 deaths at this point. It's not easy because they do get pretty low sometimes, but he got dropped to exactly 0. Okay, I'll fire both. Okay, roll damage. This giant fire beetle was the largest of all of them, had 12 hit points. He rolled exactly 12 points of damage and fried him. Cool. All right, so 1 out of 3 is down, but they're all hurting. Somebody else was like at 3 hit points. Everybody else is like missing wildly. They're rolling for crap all night. What are they going to do? So I go, well, the biggest one just died, so now I have to trigger morale checks on all of them. Giant tiger beetles have a morale of 9. And in basic fantasy RPG, to do a morale check, you roll 2d12. You have to match or under to stay in the fight. So that's 9 out of 12. It's a 75% chance that they're going to stick in the fight, right? Every remaining tiger beetle failed morale and took off, and they were hitting them from behind with their parting shots on the way out, but they didn't hit. I think 1 hit, and they all lived. And they went, we're getting out of here now. And they picked up Nitro. They ran out of the place. And so tonight is actually going to be the follow-up session where they have to go back in because they have to figure out what's going on, and they're all terrified because they were that close. If those creatures had not failed their morale checks, they were going to be TPK'd because they were not rolling well at all, and I could not roll anything under like a 19 all session. And they were like, what are you doing to us? I'm like, it's just the dice, man. But that morale, because I was rolling so high, the morale check saved them. So sometimes, folks, morale checks save lives. Just putting it out there. So those are my 2 stories for the week. And it's about 11:53, so we're going to be, or 11:50. Did I start early? No. I must have started early. Who knows? Whatever. I shouldn't. Is it 11? It's 12:53, right? I don't know. Anyway, so what was really, that was really, really fun. So what do I have coming up? So I have 2 books that I'm reading. You already saw Index Card RPG. I'm also reading Numenera Destiny. Have started going through that. I'm through 2 of the... I think I'm through all 3 of the new character types that they put in. I'm starting to look at the different aspects of the character building for that. And I'm interested to see how they do domain level building in Numenera, even though it's not my favorite style of play. Those 2 things are going to take a while for me to get through. I've also got Swords and Wizardry that I just showed you that I'm going to start looking at for that review. Reviews they take a while, which is one of the reasons why my review of Savage Worlds has taken so long. It's written. I need to find a chance to actually record it. So in the meantime, I mentioned that I built something with Dungeon Alchemist, the cave system, because Dungeon Alchemist has created now a cave building tool inside their program. If you're not familiar with Dungeon Alchemist, its big selling point was that you could draw a room and it would populate it via AI with what type of room it was. And it has really good terrain editing features for raising and lowering terrain. I still need to be able to put buildings on different levels, but that's coming in the future. But it's really neat. It's one of my favorite tools to use for outdoor maps because there's that terrain. People did use it to build maps just by that terrain tool. They would raise everything up and they would slowly carve out their caves in it. And it would come out with a really cool effect. And I have a couple of really neat cave systems that have, ups and like changes in elevation. It's really cool, but it takes forever. And the other thing about it is that it didn't recognize the cave walls as walls because it wasn't done with their building tool. So when you brought it into your VTT, you had to actually draw the walls to block light and things like that. That's fine. I started at 11. How did I start so early today? Oh, well. I'm not skipping lunch. I'm doing pre-lunch. I had everything done. That's going to be fun. People are like, what are you doing? You started an hour early. Thank you guys for being here anyway. I don't know what time it is anymore. My brain doesn't work anymore since everything. But so what happened is that Dungeon Alchemist, which saw that people were doing this, and in fact, I think they'd done some tutorials on it on their official YouTube channel, they decided they were going to incorporate this inside their engine. And so now they have this cave tool where if you say, I'm making caves, it immediately creates a map with everything at the highest elevation. And now when you carve caves out, it like instantly drops it down to 0. So you can go all the way through and cave it and draw your caves really, really fast. And then you can take your room types and draw it on top of your cave rooms, and it will say, oh, this is a cave, and adjust accordingly and put in elements that are appropriate for a cave, like a crypt in a cave, or a dining room in a cave. Like that's the types of things that it will do. So if you want to make a bandit lair, it's really easy to do now and actually stock it with the assets with the rooms. Really cool. And then if you want to do things like change elevation, you can use the raise and lower tools and it doesn't affect anything. But the cool thing is now when you export out something that is made with this cave tool into a VTT, it sees all the cave walls as walls. So you don't have to draw them all yourself anymore. It's all really, really fast. I'm really impressed with how they did it. And I think, at least for my in-person games, my workflow at this point is going to be to create my cave system in Dungeon Alchemist because it's just that good. Maybe bring it into Arkenforge and put all the assets in like that. So if I want to put walls and doors and stuff, I can do that and use some of Dungeon Alchemist cool tools in order to flesh it out. But the walls are already set. Makes me really happy. I'm going to demo that on the channel pretty soon. I can't believe I started an hour early. I was just excited and I had done most of the work that I wanted to do today. I have emails to write now, which good. I started early. Thanks, guys. Sorry, Dave. So really, really cool times. And that's what I have coming up. I also am looking forward to getting a couple of guests on here. I do want to have someone from Sharp Mountain Games. I have a couple other invitations out of folks I'm not going to reveal at this point because I want to set it up first to see if this time slot even works for them. But that's the type of thing that I want to do with skipping lunch or skipping second breakfast when you're or 11sies, which is what I did today. Dave, it's quite. It'll be on DVR for you. I'm so sorry I started early on you, man. But that's the kind of stuff that I really want to do and to talk about and do demos and things that I don't do with my normal product reviews because I'm too busy doing the product reviews. So a lot of fun. Thank you for all of your comments today. It was a lot of fun to do to be here with all of you and to just chat, shoot the breeze, and show off some cool stuff. If you have cool things that you are talking about inside your tables or your games, you want to share a story or two and come on and talk with me, let me know at some point. Epic Solo, I want to talk about what you're doing with your cool thing and talk about your crazy goblin who's trying to backstab everybody left and right. What's his name? Milbog. I would love to have you come on and chat if you ever want to do that. But really a lot of fun to do this. It's a pleasure to be here with you all. So Dave, sorry I started early. I was like, oh, it's noon. And it wasn't, it was 10 or 11. I don't know. Time has no meaning anymore. It's a social contract or construct anyway. But that's what I got going on. Until I see you all again, folks. And I do hope to have my review of Savage Worlds up early next week. But happy playing, everyone.